Hi everyone, hope that everyone is doing well and keeping yourself safe. The title of my presentation today is on the influence of individual differences and developmental trajectories in affecting the outcomes of music and movement intervention on the sensorimotor and socio-emotional development of children with autism. How much do you know about autism and what are the symptoms? Let's just watch a short video clip to give you an idea of some of the symptoms of autism.
No, don't do that. Stop.
According to DSM-5, autism spectrum disorder is a neurodevelopmental disorder that leads to individuals' deficiencies in social interaction, social communication, and restricted and repetitive behaviors. Severity of autism depends on an individual's levels of difficulties in their social communication and social interaction environments, and restricted and repetitive patterns of behaviors. Autism is a disorder in which individuals may be affected by other comorbidities, such as motor impairments, OCD, intellectual disability, ADD, ADHD, seizures, and epilepsy, and etc. Due to these comorbidities, none of the individuals with autism shares the same symptoms. Some studies indicated that the comorbidities in autism is caused by abnormal long-range underconnectivity and short-range overconnectivity in the brain. Researchers also attempted to explain autism using various theories such as theory of underconnectivity, theory of mind, executive dysfunction, theory of overconnectivity, weak central coherence, cerebral cortical circuitry dysfunction, and theory of disrupted connectivity to explain the etiology of autism. Music and movement is one of the approaches used in music therapy to enhance the social skills of children with autism. However, due to the spectrum of autism, each individual may respond differently to the treatment of music and movement intervention. Currently, there is a lack of studies on examining the influence of individual differences and developmental trajectories on the effectiveness of music and movement in improving the sensorimotor and socio-emotional development of children with autism. The purpose of this study was to examine the influence of individual differences and developmental trajectories of 4 children with autism on their sensorimotor and socio-emotional responses to the treatment of individualized music and movement intervention during the 6-week treatment period. The significance of this study provided us with an opportunity to have a deeper understanding on how the individual differences and developmental trajectories influence the music and movement interventions outcomes on the sensorimotor and socio-emotional development of children with autism. The findings of this study also encourage therapists to plan their early intervention program carefully to accommodate the needs and abilities of children with autism in order to achieve sustainable long-term goals. Social dysfunction is the main diagnostic criteria for autism. Individuals with autism often find themselves having difficulties in interacting and building relationships with others, reading and understand social cues, interpreting gesture and facial expression, theory of mind, regulating emotions, communicating verbally and non-verbally, controlling their repetitive behaviors, and adapting to a wide range of activities. Some researchers propose that damages to the amygdala could lead to social impairments among individuals with autism. Individuals with with damage in their amygdala may have difficulties in recognizing complex facial expressions such as thoughtfulness, boredom, arrogance, and flirtatiousness. Lack of theory of mind is also often used to explain the social difficulties among the individuals with autism. Theory of mind is a composite function that depends on the maturity of cerebral regions that control memory, joint attention, face and gaze processing, language, and executive functions. Mosconi and his colleagues went further, explaining that there was an association between the sensorimotor deficits and the social impairment among the individuals with autism. This association is related to the cerebrocortical circuitry dysfunction. The study of Pusponigoro and his team also found that children with autism who had lower gross motor skills tended to have poorer socialization skills compared to those typically developed children. Other studies also indicated that motor impairment can also lead to delays in language development, imitation abilities, shared attention, affective reciprocity, and emotional empathy among individuals with autism. Why do we propose music and movement intervention as a potential treatment to improve the sensorimotor and socio-emotional development of children with autism? When the children with autism engage in the music and movement activities, their auditory motor system will be activated, which in turn promote neuroplasticity within the cortical and subcortical system that controls our sensory and socio-emotional function. When individuals listen to the music, their auditory cortex will be activated and work with the frontotemporal, parietal, and subcortical areas that are related to attention, motor skills, and memory. The key to the auditory motor interaction with the cortical and subcortical area of the brain lies on the concept of rhythmic entrainment that involves a synchronization between rhythmic bodily movement and stimuli, acoustic stimuli. The finding of some studies have highlighted the benefits of music and movement intervention to improve the social difficulties among children with autism. However, the therapeutic effects of music and movement intervention to these children may vary due to their individual differences. For example, Zacco and his colleague pointed out that the effectiveness of an early intervention for children with autism depended on individual variables such as autism severity, cognitive ability, and adaptive behavior skills. Apart from individual differences, the developmental trajectories of children with autism can also affect the outcomes of music and movement intervention. Family relationship, children's adaptability, and changes in surrounding environment are closely related to the developmental trajectories of children with autism. This study was conducted as a multiple case study on 3 children and 1 adolescent with autism aged between 4 and 14. These children have different range of autistic symptoms, comorbidities, and severity. The multiple case study allowed us to collect different data on each participant while trying to relate how their individual differences and developmental trajectories affected their responses to the treatment of music and movement intervention. These participants were chosen through purposive sampling. The intervention was conducted by an experienced music and movement interventionist. Each participant was required to attend the music and movement intervention for 6 consecutive weeks. Each lesson lasted for half an hour that included singing, body movements, call and response songs, finger plays, and instrumental playing. These activities were meant to improve the sensory motor and social emotional development of the 4 participants with autism. Triangulation was used to collect qualitative data from the semi-structured interviews, interventionist lesson plans and personal journals, observation notes, and video recording of each lesson. The collected data was analyzed using an inductive coding. Parents were required to complete a pre-intervention interview through phone. The interview lasted for about 45 minutes. In these interviews, they were asked to provide information on their children's medical and health history, socio-emotional and sensorimotor abilities, past and current therapies, and their strengths and weaknesses in cognition. At the end of the intervention, parents had to attend another round of interview. This post-intervention interview was meant to gather information on their children's sensorimotor and socio-emotional responses to the music and movement intervention, and their suggestions on how to improve further the effectiveness of the intervention. As the 3 independent observers were tied down by their busy working schedules, they had to refer to the video recordings to prepare their observation notes of the first, third, and 6th lessons. The observation focused on observing the participants' socio-emotional, motor, and sensory responses during their treatment sessions. After each treatment session, the interventionist prepared her personal journals to reflect each participant's emotional responses, verbal and non-verbal communication, motor functionality, and social interaction during the intervention. These reflections were important for the interventionist to review her lesson plans according to the progress of each participant throughout the treatment period. The data collected from the pre-intervention interviews indicated that participants male B, participants male C had mild autism, while participants male A and participants female D were diagnosed with severe autism. All of the 4 participants had different severity of auditory processing disorder. Among the 4 participants, participants male A and participants female D had the weakest sensory motor skills. Participant female D had problems moving around without assistance from others due to a severe nystagmus. The nystagmus will also influence her body posture. Participant male A had a strong attachment to his mother. In fact, his mother requested to stay with him throughout the 6-week study period. Participants male A and participants male B and participants male C had hypotonia, in which they had difficulties in sustaining a sitting position for a long period. They tended to slouch or lean or lie down on the floor or chair when they got tired sitting down. Participant male B also had hypermobile and hyperflexible joints, in which he couldn't feel the pain even when his right arm was dislocated. Participant female D is a non-verbal girl, while the other 3 male participants could only say limited numbers of single words. Participants male B and participants male C could take in some simple instructions. Both of them went to normal kindergartens. Although both participants male B and participants male C had better motor skills compared to participants male A and participants female D, they continued to face issues in their vestibular. They tended to fall easily when they walk. 2 cycles of inductive coding was used in the data analysis process. The data analysis started with 2 prior themes, participants' motor skills and socio-emotional functions. However, after coding and recoding, another theme emerged, namely the sensory sensitivities. Thus, the final coding included the sensory sensitivities, which comprise of the visual motor processing, auditory motor processing, auditory processing, tactile, proprioception, and vestibular. The coding for the motor skills included motor synchronization, motor coordination, motor planning, and motor control. While the coding for the social-emotional functions involved restricted and repetitive behaviors, self-regulation, self-expressions, and joint attention. The collected qualitative data were used to answer 2 research questions. The influence of individual differences and developmental trajectories on the sensorimotor in affecting the therapeutic effect of music and movement intervention. And the influence of individual differences and developmental trajectories on the socio-emotional skills in affecting the therapeutic effects of music and movement intervention. In answering the first research question on the influence of individual differences and developmental trajectories on the sensorimotor of the participants, participant male A and participant female D continue to needing much assistance from the interventionist in executing most of the music and movement activities, even though they show some improvement by the end of the intervention. Both participants' sensorimotor were too weak to that it was difficult to see many significant changes within the 6-week study period. The interventionist suggested in her personal journal that participants female D should work more on her motor planning and motor coordination. On the other hand, participant male A needed to work harder on the stamina of his gross and fine motor skills. Both participants male A and participant female D reacted to loud noises by covering their ears with their hands. Although participants male B and participants male C who had better motor skills compared to participants male A and participants female D show significant improvement in their motor skills, they still face problems in marching, jumping on both legs, balancing, visual motor integration, motor coordination, motor synchronization, and physical endurance. In answering the second research question on the influence of individual differences and developmental trajectories on the socio-emotional of the participants, we found that participants male B and participants male C who had better motor skills show more significant improvement in their socio-emotional development in terms of joint attention, self-regulation, and self-expression. However, both participants have their own ways of regulating themselves. For example, participant male C would smell the instrument that he was holding when he was no longer focused on the evening task. On the other hand, participant B would go to the video recorder or lie down on the beanbag at the corner of the room and started to play with the soft tiger toy. Participants male A and participants female D needed more time to regulate themselves when their emotions were being aroused. For example, participant male A was crying when he came for his 5th lesson. The interventionist tried very hard to calm him down, but he cried almost till the end of the lesson. Similarly, participant female D showed tantrum in her 5th lesson because she couldn't adapt to having her lesson in a new room. She got distracted easily throughout the lesson. To summarize the finding of this study, all of the participants responded differently to the treatment of music and movement intervention, depending on their individual differences and developmental trajectories. The progress of participant female D was slow due to her autistic severity, symptoms, and comorbidities. This developmental trajectory had negative impacts on her motor functions and social skills. Participants female D needed a long-term music and movement intervention before results can be seen in improving her motor skills and social-emotional development. Although participants male A also had a lot of difficulties in executing his motor functions, his limited improvement was more due to his emotional immaturity. He was very dependent on the mother to help him completing the task during the intervention. Besides, he took instructions more from the mother rather than the interventionist. It was a chaos during his 5th lessons because he couldn't control his emotion knowing that the father and the brother were waiting for him to end the lesson. Both participants male B and participants male C loved music a lot. This actually motivated them to pay attention in class and enjoy the activities. Although both participants show significant improvement in their sensorimotor and socio-emotional development during the music and movement intervention, they continue to have some problems in executing some of the motor skills, such as jumping on both legs and hand-leg coordination. This study's finding indicated that individual differences and developmental trajectory had impacts on the effectiveness of music and movement intervention in improving the sensory, motor, and social-emotional development of individuals with autism. Besides, researchers should also explore more into the concept of rhythmic entrainment to enhance the therapeutic effects of music and movement intervention. As parents have a better understanding on the therapeutic effects of music and movement intervention, they may want to choose this intervention as a complementary and alternative medicine to enhance the sensorimotor and social-emotional development of their children with autism. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.